My name is Josephine Carter. I'm 33 years old, and until last fall, I believed stability wasn't something you stumbled into. It was something you built, carefully, quietly, without leaving cracks that could collapse later. That belief shaped everything: my work, my routines, my relationships, especially my judgment. Or at least, I thought it did. Daniel Hayes was 30. We had been together a little over 4 years in Nashville. Not living together officially, but close enough that our lives had already blurred into one. Half my wardrobe lived in his closet. Half his things, random, everyday pieces of him, were scattered across my apartment like they had always belonged there. From the outside, we made sense. We had structure, predictability, the kind of relationship people point to when they say, "That's going somewhere." Sunday grocery runs at Trader Joe's, Thursday tacos from the same place in East Nashville, holidays split evenly between families like we had already rehearsed a future we hadn't formally agreed to yet. We even had a dog we didn't technically own together. His sister would drop him off on weekends, and without ever saying it out loud, Daniel and I acted like we were already a family unit. That's why commitment didn't feel like a risk to me. It felt like alignment. I wasn't rushing him. I wasn't forcing anything. I had spent months thinking about it, saving for the ring, quietly talking to his mother, planning something that felt like us instead of some staged performative proposal. I had a plan. Not rigid, just intentional. But about 3 months before everything ended, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just small inconsistencies. If I brought up next year, Daniel would joke and change the subject. If I mentioned houses, he'd laugh it off and say the market was insane. If I asked whether we should start thinking about a place together, he'd act like I had just handed him a mortgage contract over brunch. At first, I told myself it was normal. People get strange when big decisions get close. Fear doesn't always look like fear. Sometimes it looks like sarcasm. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like someone waiting for you to say the thing they're afraid of, just so they can push it away. But the jokes got sharper. "You're on a timeline, aren't you?" he said once, half smiling like it was harmless. Another time, "Why does everything have to turn into a plan with you?" And slowly, something inside me started to hesitate. Not about him, about myself. I started wondering if wanting a future after 4 years was somehow too much, too structured, too demanding. Still, I ignored the feeling. Because love, when it's been steady long enough, teaches you to tolerate small misalignments in the name of continuity. I should have paid attention sooner. The night it ended was a Friday in October. I had made dinner reservations at a small Italian restaurant downtown. Not because I planned to propose right there. I didn't. The ring was in my purse, tucked into a small velvet box, because after dinner we were supposed to walk by the riverfront. That's where I had planned it. Everything was ready. The ring, the timing, the quiet version of a future I thought we both understood. Dinner started fine. He ordered his usual, made a joke about the candle being too dramatic. Spent a little too much time on his phone, but not enough for me to call it out. Just enough to register. Halfway through the meal, he looked up at me and said, almost casually, "So, if you ever did propose, what exactly do you think would change?" I smiled at first. I thought he was teasing. "I guess it would mean we're building the next part on purpose," I said. He leaned back in his chair, arms crossing slowly like he was settling into a thought he had already decided on. Then he smiled. Not warmly, precisely. "A ring won't make me stay." No hesitation. No softness. Just a statement. Flat, controlled, certain. For a second, everything in my head went completely quiet. I remember holding my fork midair, not moving, just processing. He kept going. "I love you, Josephine, but I need you to understand. I'm not one of those people who needs a title to feel secure. If I ever feel boxed in, I'll leave. I need freedom more than symbolism." And that was it. Not a fight. Not an argument. Just clarity. Because once someone says that while you're holding a future in your hands, you don't need interpretation. You don't need context. You don't need to ask what they really meant. So I set my fork down, calmly, and said the only honest thing that made sense. "Then I won't ask." He laughed. Actually laughed. Like I was being dramatic. Like I had misunderstood something simple. "Josephine, don't do that," he said. "You're taking it too seriously." But I wasn't. For the first time in months, I wasn't second-guessing anything. I reached into my purse, pulled out my wallet, and placed cash on the table before the check even arrived. That got his attention. "Wait, what are you doing?" he asked. "Believing you," I said. I stood up. No raised voice, no scene, no emotional unraveling. Just done. He followed me outside, trying to soften it, trying to pull the moment back into something less final. I didn't mean tonight had to turn into this, he said. You know I panic when things start sounding like a checklist. I turned to him once. Daniel, I said quietly, you just told me commitment wouldn't change anything because you might leave anyway. I'm not building a future with someone who's already planning their exit. He opened his mouth, but I didn't wait. I walked away. And just like that, 4 years ended with one sentence. I got back to my apartment, placed the ring in my desk drawer, and threw the flowers I had bought for later into the trash. Not angrily, just efficiently. Then I blocked his number for the night, because I already knew what came next. And I wasn't wrong. By midnight, there were 17 missed calls, 9 texts, 2 voicemails. And every message said the same thing in different ways. That I had misunderstood, that I had overreacted, that I had taken honesty too seriously. I stared at my phone in the dark, feeling something unfamiliar settle into place. Not heartbreak. Not yet. Something quieter. Something colder. Relief. I wish I could say relief lasted. It didn't. It barely made it to sunrise. The next morning, I woke up to that strange kind of silence that only happens after something in your life has broken cleanly. No good morning text. No meme from Daniel. No little routine reaching for my phone and expecting warmth on the other side. Just stillness. For about 3 seconds, it felt peaceful. Then I checked my notifications. He had called from his number until I blocked it, then from an unknown number, then another. The texts came in waves, each one wearing a different costume, but all asking for the same thing, access. You took that way too seriously. I was trying to be honest. This is exactly why serious conversations feel impossible with you. Please call me. Joe, come on. I listened to the first voicemail by mistake because my thumb slipped. He sounded angry at first, tight, offended, like I had embarrassed him by refusing to play my assigned role. The second voicemail was crying. Real tears, maybe. Or maybe just the sound of someone mourning the version of the night they thought they could still control. I deleted both. Then I made coffee and stood in my kitchen, staring at the steam rising from the mug, like it might explain how 4 years could end so fast and still feel so inevitable. At 9:17, a new text came from a number I didn't know. It was his friend Marissa. She didn't mean it like that. She's freaking out. Can you at least talk to him? I looked at the screen and felt my jaw tighten. That was the first moment I understood Daniel had already started outsourcing the version of the story that made him look wounded instead of responsible. I replied once. He told me exactly how he feels about commitment. I listened. There's nothing to discuss. Then I blocked that number too. By Sunday afternoon, mutual friends started sending screenshots. Daniel had posted vague things online. Nothing explicit enough to sound unstable if someone challenged him. Just carefully worded little fragments designed to attract sympathy. Some women love the idea of loyalty until they hear an opinion they can't control. Honesty ruins relationships that performance can't sustain. Funny how quickly people punish freedom when it threatens their timeline. He never used my name. He didn't have to. It was obvious who he meant, and that was the point. He wanted witnesses without accountability, an audience without facts. One of our mutuals, Tessa, texted me the screenshots with a single line underneath. I assumed there was more to this. There was. There always is when someone starts rewriting the ending before the dust has even settled. I ignored it. At least I tried to. Monday morning, my mother called me at 8:12. My mother does not call before 9 unless something is wrong. She texts first. Always. So the second I saw her name, my stomach dropped. I answered immediately. Mom? Her voice was calm, which somehow made it worse. Why did your ex-boyfriend leave me a voicemail saying you had some kind of emotional episode at dinner? For a second, I didn't even answer. I just leaned against the kitchen counter and shut my eyes. There it was. The escalation. Not grief. Not confusion. Reputation management. What exactly did he say? I asked. She paused, then read part of it back. Apparently, Daniel had told her I had blindsided him with pressure, turned a normal dinner into a scene, stormed out when he tried to have an honest conversation, and was now spiraling because I couldn't tolerate emotional nuance. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because the precision of the distortion was almost impressive. He hadn't changed the skeleton of the event. He had just rearranged its organs until the whole thing looked alive in a different shape. Mom, I said quietly, do you want the truth? I called because I assumed I wasn't hearing it yet. So I told her everything. The ring. The plan. The riverfront walk afterward. His exact words. A ring won't make me stay. The way he said it without fear or tenderness. The sidewalk conversation. The calls afterward. The public posts. The way every message seemed less about remorse and more about re-entering the room. When I finished, she was quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, very calmly, he's not upset about commitment. He's upset that he lost control of the timing. I sank into one of the kitchen chairs so fast it scraped the floor, because that was it. That was the shape of the thing I had been feeling but hadn't fully named yet. Not heartbreak, not misunderstanding. Control. I pressed my hand over my eyes. "That sounds right," I whispered. Then my mother said the sentence that made me feel sane again. "You did the correct thing." I sat there after we hung up with tears in my eyes, not because I wanted Daniel back, but because validation after distortion feels like oxygen. It gives your mind somewhere solid to stand. That should have been the end of it. It wasn't. 3 days later, he showed up outside my apartment building. I live in a secured mid-rise with a front desk, cameras, and a lobby that smells like eucalyptus and expensive cleaning products. Around 6:40 p.m., the desk called upstairs. "Miss Carter? There's a man down here saying he left some things in your apartment." I looked toward my front door, even though I already knew no one was behind it. "No, he didn't," I said. "Please ask him to leave." 5 minutes later, they called again. "He says he just wants closure." Closure. I have learned that closure is one of those words people use when what they really want is access without resistance. I stood very still in my living room for a few seconds, then grabbed my keys. I didn't go downstairs because I wanted to see him. I went downstairs because I wanted one clean interaction, in public, on camera, with witnesses. Daniel was standing near the elevator when I stepped into the lobby. Jeans, boots, one of those soft gray sweaters I used to love on him because it made him look gentler than he really was. His hair was slightly messy, eyes red like he hadn't slept, face arranged into something fragile enough to invite sympathy. And over it all, the faintest trace of calculation. He looked up when he saw me, and for a split second I saw relief move across his face. Like he believed showing up would work because somewhere deep down, he still thought I was reachable if he looked hurt enough. "I just need 5 minutes," he said. "No." He blinked. Just once. Like the answer had landed too quickly. "Josephine, please." "No." He took a step closer, then stopped when he noticed the front desk attendant watching. "I didn't say I didn't want a future with you," he said, lowering his voice. "I said I didn't want to be pushed into one on somebody else's timeline." I folded my arms. There was no push. There was a relationship. After 4 years, I'm allowed to want commitment. You're allowed not to. But I'm not staying in something where the answer is maybe, and I'm definitely not staying where the answer is I'll leave if I feel boxed in. His mouth tightened. "That's not fair." I almost smiled. Fair. As if fairness had anything to do with rewriting the truth to my mother. As if fairness was showing up at my home after I had made it clear I wanted distance. As if fairness was expecting me to separate his intentions from the impact of his words while he denied me the same grace. "You were honest," I said, and I listened. His eyes filled instantly. The timing of it was so perfect I would have believed it once. Maybe I did believe it once. So that's it?" he asked, voice cracking. "You're throwing me away because I told the truth?" "No," I said. "I'm leaving because you did." A couple walking in from outside slowed down when they heard the tension in his voice. The front desk attendant looked studiously busy, while clearly listening to every word. Daniel noticed, and for 1 second I saw humiliation flash across his face, not for what he had done, but for having to experience consequences in front of witnesses. That, more than anything, told me I was right. If this were really about love, privacy would have mattered. But this was about regaining narrative. "I made one mistake," he whispered. I looked at him for a long moment. "No," I said quietly. "You made a clear statement. The mistake was thinking I would ignore it." Then I turned and walked back toward the elevator. I didn't rush. I didn't look back. I pressed the button and waited with my pulse steady and my hands cold. When the doors opened, I stepped inside and caught the front desk attendant's eyes for half a second. His expression said what polite people in buildings like that never say out loud. "I've seen this before." That night, Daniel texted me from another unknown number. I think I made a huge mistake. I stared at it for a while, then blocked it. The next day, his younger sister, Emily, called me. I actually liked Emily. She was warm, funny, and usually allergic to drama, which is probably why Daniel had sent her. She opened carefully, like someone trying not to step on glass. "Joe," she said, "I'm not defending what he said. I'm just, maybe don't end 4 years over one bad sentence." I leaned back in my chair and closed my eyes. "It wasn't one bad sentence," I said. "It was a clear statement about how he sees commitment, said at the exact moment it mattered most." She went quiet. Then, softer, "That's not exactly how he told it." "I know." And there it was again. The pattern. To Marissa, I was rigid. To my mother, I was unstable. To Emily, I was impulsive. I was becoming a different villain depending on the audience. But the truth remained unchanged, and that was the only thing keeping me anchored. I knew what I heard because I was there. I knew what was in my purse because I bought it. I knew what commitment meant to me. And I knew I was not going to spend the next several years negotiating with someone who wanted the safety of my love without the weight of choosing me back. About 10 days after the breakup, something surprising happened. I started to feel better. Not healed. Not untouched. But lighter. I started running again in the mornings. I cleaned out a hallway closet that had been irritating me for months. I picked up extra work on a logistics project my director had been nudging me toward. I cooked for myself without making enough for two. I stopped checking my phone every hour, like it might spit out a different version of reality. Peace has a strange way of exposing how exhausted you were. And once I started feeling that peace, Daniel escalated. About 2.5 weeks after that dinner, Daniel sent flowers to my office. Not the kind that make you pause and smile, the kind that make you sigh. A massive arrangement. White roses, blue delphiniums, arranged in a heavy glass vase that looked expensive enough to feel intentional. Not romantic, strategic. The card read, "For the woman who was supposed to stay, we can still fix this." I stood there staring at it while the scent filled my office like something invasive. My assistant manager, Nina, leaned against the doorway with her arms crossed. "You want me to toss these?" she asked. "Or are we pretending this is sweet?" "Toss them," I said. But before she did, I took a picture of the card. Then another of the arrangement. Then I created a folder on my phone. I didn't call it anything dramatic. Just documentation. Because by then, something had shifted. This didn't feel like heartbreak anymore. It felt like a pattern. That same week, Daniel emailed my work account. Subject line, mature conversation. 4 paragraphs. Half apology, half accusation. He said he hadn't realized I would weaponize vulnerability. That I had always made him feel like love had to pass some kind of test. That commitment should be organic, not scheduled like a project milestone. And then, buried in the 3rd paragraph, "You didn't even give me space to process. You decided for both of us." I read it twice. Then I replied with one sentence. "Do not contact me at work again." Then I forwarded the email to myself and to HR. Not because I wanted to escalate, because I wanted a record. That bought me 4 days of silence. Then Saturday morning happened. I was at my usual coffee shop in 12 South. Same corner table, same order, same quiet rhythm I had been rebuilding piece by piece. Across from me sat Ethan, 35, architect, someone I had met through a colleague the week before. There was nothing dramatic about him. No intensity, no emotional puzzles, just ease. We were halfway through a conversation about travel plans. Something simple, something light, when the door opened. I didn't even have to turn to know. My body recognized the shift before my eyes confirmed it. Daniel. He stopped just inside the entrance when he saw me. Saw us. For a second, he froze. Then he made a decision. And walked over. That choice alone told me everything. He wasn't here by accident. Or, if he was, he wasn't leaving quietly. "Wow," he said, stopping beside our table. "So this is how long forever lasts now." Ethan looked at me first. Not confused. Just giving me the space to handle it. That alone told me more about him than anything he had said all morning. "Daniel," I said, "steady, leave." He laughed. Sharp, controlled. "You're really doing this?" he said. 4 years? And suddenly you're auditioning replacements over coffee? I felt something inside me tighten. Not pain. Recognition. "I was about to propose to you," I said. "Don't rewrite this because you don't like the outcome." That hit. His face changed instantly. Not softer. Harder. Then he looked at Ethan. "Did she tell you that part?" he asked. "Or just the version where I'm the villain because I didn't follow her timeline?" Ethan didn't flinch. "I think you should go," he said calmly. Daniel's smile flickered, then disappeared. He reached for the water glass on our table. For a split second, I thought he was going to throw it. He didn't. He tipped it. Hard enough. Water spilled across the table, soaking the napkins, my phone, the edge of Ethan's sleeve. Not chaotic. Deliberate. Controlled enough to be explained away. Loud enough to draw attention. People turned. The barista froze mid-order. And right on cue, Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Instantly. Like a switch had flipped. "See?" he said, voice breaking just enough. "This is what she does. Pushes people until they react, then acts like she's the calm one." The manager came over. Employees moved closer. Daniel stepped back slightly, already retreating into the version of himself that looked like a victim. "I'm sorry," he said, not to me, but to the room. "I just didn't expect to see her here with someone else so soon." It was almost impressive. The timing, the narrative, the restraint. He left before anyone could ask too many questions, before the scene could fully belong to facts instead of emotion. The manager approached us cautiously. "You okay?" he asked. "Yes," I said, "but I'd like a copy of whatever report you file about this." He nodded immediately. That told me I wasn't overreacting. That told me someone else saw it too. Ethan looked at me once Daniel was gone. "I'm guessing that's not random," he said. I let out a breath I didn't realize I had been holding. "No," I said, "it's not." He nodded. No judgment, no pressure, just understanding. We finished our coffee somewhere else. That was the moment something inside me locked into place. Hope was gone. Not just for the relationship, for the idea that Daniel would stop on his own. So I did something I hadn't done before. I scheduled a consultation with an attorney. $780. 1 hour. I brought everything. Screenshots, call logs, the flower card, the email, notes from the lobby incident, the coffee shop report. He listened without interrupting, then said something simple. "People like this don't see boundaries as endings. They see them as obstacles." I sat there, hands folded in my lap, feeling something cold settle into my chest. "What do I do?" I asked. "You document," he said, "and you prepare." 3 nights later, Daniel tested that advice. 11:43 p.m. New number, 1 message. "I'm at St. Thomas. They think it's my heart. If you ever cared about me, come." For a second, just a second, I reached for my keys. Muscle memory. 4 years of reflex. Then I stopped. Because something about the wording felt wrong, not urgent. Designed. I put my keys back down. And called the hospital directly. No patient by that name. I sat there in the dark of my apartment, phone still in my hand, staring at nothing. Not angry. Not shocked. Just done. That was a line you don't come back from. I typed one response. "Do not contact me again with false emergencies." He didn't reply. The next morning, my mother sent me a screenshot. Daniel had messaged her too. Told her I had abandoned him during a medical emergency. I stared at the message, then at her reply underneath. Hospitals usually have records. I smiled. A small, tired smile. Because clarity, once it settles in, doesn't leave much room for doubt. And right then, I stopped hoping he would understand. I started preparing for what came next. A week after the hospital message, Daniel tried a different approach. He showed up at my office building. Not outside. Inside. Blazer. Clean haircut. Holding a folder like he belonged there. Security called upstairs before letting him pass the lobby. "Miss Carter, there is a man down here saying he needs your signature on shared financial documents." I actually closed my eyes for a second. Shared financial documents. We had never shared a lease. Never opened a joint account. Never taken on debt together. Nothing. "No," I said calmly. "We don't have anything like that. Do not let him up." Apparently, that didn't end it. He argued long enough that my HR manager came down personally. Later, she told me he'd kept insisting I owed him a conversation, that serious relationships create serious obligations. Obligations. As if access was something he could claim retroactively. She escorted him out. That incident got documented too. By then, my folder had turned into a system. Dates, times, screenshots, notes. Every contact, every appearance, every version of the story he tried to tell. And somewhere in the middle of all that, my life kept moving. Ethan and I continued seeing each other. Slowly, intentionally. No performances, no pressure, no hidden negotiations disguised as affection. We went on quiet dinners, walked through Shelby Park, talked about ordinary things, work, childhood stories, what stability actually feels like when it isn't constantly being tested. He never rushed me. He never pulled away when things got serious either. Consistency. I didn't realize how rare it felt until I had it again. I didn't talk about him publicly. Didn't post anything. Didn't invite comparison. But people notice things. And somehow, Daniel found out. It happened on a Friday evening. Ethan had just texted me. "There's someone sitting in a white SUV across from my building. It's been there for 20 minutes. Then a photo. I didn't need to zoom in. I recognized the car. I grabbed my keys and drove. Ethan stayed inside and called non-emergency police, just like we had discussed if something like this ever happened. By the time I got there, the SUV had moved. Half a block down. Still there. Still watching. An officer arrived within minutes. He approached the vehicle, spoke to Daniel, asked questions. I stood on the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching from a distance that felt both too far and not far enough. Daniel claimed he was just in the area. The officer nodded in a way that said he didn't believe him. Neither did I. Because people who are just in the area don't sit across from someone's home for 20 minutes. After that night, everything shifted. This wasn't exhausting anymore. It was serious. My attorney filed for a protective order the next morning. Full documentation. Everything. The dinner. The lobby. The unknown numbers. The flowers. The email. The coffee shop. The hospital lie. The office incident. The SUV. He flipped through the folder and actually smiled at one point. The flower card is excellent, he said. People never realize how useful their own dramatics become. 5 weeks later, we were in court. I wore a simple black dress, no jewelry except a watch, hair pulled back, nothing that invited interpretation. Daniel arrived in a navy suit, soft expression, controlled posture, the version of himself designed to be believed. If I hadn't known him, I might have believed it too. His attorney framed everything as heartbreak, said he was grieving the sudden loss of a long-term relationship, that emotions had escalated, that he had only sought closure. Closure, that word again. My attorney didn't argue emotionally. He didn't need to. He walked the judge through the pattern, one step at a time. Dinner statement. Lobby confrontation. Repeated contact through unknown numbers. Flowers at my workplace. Email to my professional account. Public disruption at the cafe. False medical emergency. Office appearance. Vehicle outside another person's residence. At one point, the judge looked directly at Daniel. Did you tell the petitioner a ring won't make me stay? Daniel hesitated. Just long enough. I was trying to express that love should be enough, he said. The judge didn't even pause. That is not what you expressed. Something inside my chest settled when she said that. Not satisfaction. Alignment. Then she asked him why, after the relationship ended, he continued contacting me through multiple channels, including family, workplace, and in-person appearances. Daniel's eyes filled again. Right on cue. His attorney stepped in, tried to soften it. She was seeking closure, Your Honor. The judge's expression didn't change. Closure is not something another person is legally required to provide. Silence. Then the decision. 1 year, no contact, no third-party contact. Stay 300 feet away from my home, my workplace, and Ethan's residence. No online references, no indirect messaging, no appearances. Done. Walking out of that courtroom felt different than the night I left the restaurant. That night, I had ended something. This time, something ended for me. Not hope, not love, access. And that made all the difference. After that, life got quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't feel empty. Just stable. I heard through a mutual friend that Daniel lost his job about a month later. Not because of me, but because the pattern he showed me didn't stay contained. It leaked into other parts of his life. I didn't celebrate it. I didn't need to. Consequences don't require witnesses. Around the same time, I got promoted. Senior operations lead. The project I had taken on during all of that chaos had paid off. The raise was $8,400 a year. Almost exactly what I had spent on the attorney. There was something quietly satisfying about that symmetry. Ethan and I kept going. No sudden declarations. No pressure to define things before they were ready. We built something the way I had always believed it should be built. One decision at a time. 6 months later, it still feels calm. And I've learned that calm is not boring. It's rare. A few weeks after the hearing, Daniel's father called me, not to argue, to apologize. I don't think he understood that some words close doors, he said. I thought about that for a moment. I think that's exactly what happened, I replied. And that was it. No anger, no lingering questions, just clarity. Because that's the lesson I took from all of it. Commitment isn't about forcing someone into a promise they don't want. It's about listening when they tell you, clearly, that they don't value the same future you do. Daniel wanted the safety of being loved, without the responsibility of choosing me back. That's not commitment. That's access. And once you learn the difference, you stop negotiating. You stop explaining. You just walk away. And this time, you don't look back.